So we will start our class. So this is the question we have. What is the output type of the DataWeave map operator? I see two answers. Yes, okay, good. So the data input type and output type with the map operator are always arrays. You can check if you in the documentation. So here, as you can see here, it says, let me bring this. It says it iterates over items in an array. So the input is an array and output is the results into a new array. So we use map with arrays. It takes in arrays and outputs arrays. There is another one called map objects that we are going to discuss today. But those of you who have answered as arrays, yeah, correct. So today we will see a couple of things. One thing I will finish what I didn't cover from yesterday's content. So yesterday we were transforming data from one format to the other using example data or metadata. And we saw XML to JSON, XML to XLSX, but we didn't see XML to CSV. It failed for some reason. I spent some time on that. And the reason was, if you just tried that, maybe if you did the same like mine, the reason was my data, CSV data was for some reason inappropriate format. So it had the double commas at the end. Let me show you what it looks like. And if you see some kind of, there are these two double commas at the end. I removed them, and then after that it worked. So if you input data, you have to input data, and for some reason your transformation DataWeave doesn't detect the structure, you can just open the data in editor itself in the project there. You go under, we said, you go, this one is, okay, yesterday's project is this one. So if I go to source, main, resources, under here, I will get examples and just check. I just opened it here and I saw double commas and removed them and it worked. Now, as you can see, after I remove, okay. Now, after I remove the comma, the second comma, it worked fine. So what are some pointers to note here? So XML to CSV, I think we discussed this. There isn't anything new. And I have completed all the different formats here and pushed the project to GitHub. So you can get it from there and see if you can reproduce it. Make sure you understand the code. The other thing we discussed was about transforming from other formats to XML. Let's see, for example, this one. So what we said was, let me make this full screen. So here we said, when we transform data to XML, we have the attributes. So we put the attribute using this @ sign. So we have this book item. The attribute should be within these brackets. And we explicitly declare that it is an attribute using this @ sign, and its value is here. Title also, it has both a text value here and also an attribute. The rest of them, they don't have attributes. That one we discussed it. The other important thing, which is common in certification or questions also, it could be misleading, is when you transform to XML, we say root node is required. For JSON, it is optional. So that's why we have this root node. In addition to that, when we use map operator, following to the root node, we have to put this curly bracket followed by bracket and close it here. So if we don't have this, for JSON, you don't need it, or for the CSV, also for the other formats, you don't need it. Whereas for XML, this is required. This is required, this part and this part. So basically, see, this one is for this one, and this one is for this one. So let's see, here it should be like this. So these two correspond to these two. If you are transforming it to CSV, you don't need to include these brackets, but when you transform to XML, that is a requirement. And there is one certification question related to this one. Pay attention to this code. I can even, let me see if I can share a screenshot. Can I share a screenshot here? Okay, perfect. So let me share this code. Then I will give you a question and see if you can answer it following this one. So take a screenshot, save it as, I'll call it just XML, and in the chat, attach it. Go to downloads, XML, let's see. Okay, so you can open it and have it open. Then I have a question. By the way, can you guys hear me? Can you show me thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the question I have, expect such questions in certification, is this one. Let me share it. Here is, okay, the data, this is the data, and the question is, I guess here. So it is somewhat blurred because it is a screenshot. Let me show you the question first, and then I will share the data with you. So here, the question, what it says is, what DataWeave expression transforms the example XML input to the CSV output? So we have here XML input. It is the root node, as you can see, is cell, and there are item elements here, two items basically, one here and another one here. So put some code here that results in this CSV data. So the CSV, as we can see, it has a header. So we don't the default, by default, when we transform to CSV, it adds header. And index, this index here is 0, 1. So simply it is just the index. Whereas the cell column is, there is cell ID here, cell ID 1000, both of them, cell ID is 1000. Then there is item name. The item name here is a description. And item price is product of the quantity and price. And at the end, there is item, and that corresponds to the item ID. So let me, I have typed the data. I have it here. This is the data. Let me see if I can share it and if you can copy paste it to your text editor. So this is it. I'm not sure. Yeah, just copy it and save it as XML. Once you copy it and save it as XML, then it will render correctly. So I have copied this to DataWeave. Just take it. You go to DataWeave. What you can do is come to DataWeave here. Then let me refresh this. And in here, once you open the DataWeave playground, I mean the DataWeave playground, once you open it, you can add your own data by just replace this payload. Just click that, and the payload here, the data type is JSON. You can change it to XML here. There is XML, and copy paste the data. So what I'm going to do is I will copy this data that I just sent you, that I just shared with you. Then here the payload, when you open it, the DataWeave playground, when you open it, it will be like this. Just click on it and replace that. And this data type, change it to XML. So now, if you just type here payload in the script section, you see the payload is here. It renders it as JSON. Like by default, this is JSON. But if I just put this as XML, then it is the original XML. But the question is different. The question is output it as CSV, and also they have given the CSV the expected format, the expected output. So there is this one. There is index column. There is cell column, which is the cell ID. Let me type it there so that you can see it in the DataWeave playground. So here, so cell is from cell ID. Cell ID. We should have cell column. It should be from the cell ID. Then index is just index. Item name is a description. Okay, item name from the description. And what else do we have? There is also item price. Item price is quantity times price. And finally, there is item. Item is simply from, you get the item is the item ID. So your output, your final CSV output, it should have cell. Before that also there is the index. That's clear. Index is simply the index. So your output, your CSV output should have index, cell, item name, item price, and item. And how do you get the values of each column? From the index is simply the index. The cell is cell ID here. As you can see, it is cell ID here is an attribute with an item. So you get that using the .@ sign. So there is this one. Then item name is this description. So item.description should give you the item name. And there is item price. It should be the product of these two. It should be quantity times price. And item ID is also this item ID, which is another attribute. The size, we are not including it in the final output. So this one, from what we saw yesterday and the screen I shared with you, how do you do that? Cell.item. Can you test it? Can you open DataWeave Playground? All of you, can you open DataWeave Playground and copy paste the data there, like what I did, and experiment and see what you get? Then anyone who has the answer can raise their hand and share their screen and show us. So like Asqual said, you start with payload dot cell. Then it gives you, when I do payload.cell, it gives me this object. As you can see, it is an object. Then to get the items, if I just do .item, it gives me the first item. So to get all items, I add here the asterisk. Now I have an array. Now the rest part, how do I map this? Using a map, how do I get these columns to a CSV output? Anyone who has Who has tried it and is working for them? We can do it together. So we have this array. Now we just add map, then value, let's say value index. So value corresponds to the different elements of the array, and the index is the index of the array. Starts from 0, we say. Then we do like this, and then the column names will be keys. This one, let me change it to C. This will be CSV, right? So the first thing is index is simply index. From the value index pairs, it is index. And the other one is cell is value. So as you can see, cell E corresponds to cell ID. So it is an attribute. So what I have to do is dot add cell ID. As you can see, I have the cell now. The next column is, as you can see on the right, also the columns are being added. The next one is item name. So item name is simply the description. So I can write as value dot description. It has been added. And item price is simply I am multiplying two things. So I will put each one of them within brackets. So I have value dot quantity times value dot price. This item price, let me see. Okay, yeah, there is I understand, I know the error, why it is coming from. Let me finish this and I'll show. And the other one is, the item is item ID. Also the item column is item ID. And the item ID is, as you can see here, it is again an attribute. So I use the @ sign to access it. So it is an attribute of the value, that means of the item. Value dot add item ID. As you can see, it gives me suggestions also. So this is XML, and you see here in price, I have space here. So this is an error, because how it is considering this is not a number. If we have space, it is going to think it is a string, because space is also a character. So if I remove this space, it should consider it as a number and it should work. Okay. So we have this one. This one was the output, the expected output. Let me move this around. This was the expected output in the test question. So this is a test question, as you can see, and this one are, wait, are they the same? Yeah, 2060, 592, 972, 2060. Okay, I have to add item is value dot item ID. I see ID is D is lowercase. Okay, it is not uppercase. There is no uppercase here. It should be exact. It is case sensitive. So as you can see, this is output. So try to understand this, practice it, and expect such questions in interviews and certifications. And if you practice it, it should not be difficult at all. I will share this question. If you want in the chat, you can save it and practice with it. Okay, the other question I have is, I have another question. Let me refresh this, reset it. So the question is, we have a variable conductor IDs. It has these values. So it is an array now. We can just use map on top of it. If I do, okay, conductor IDs, payload rate, we replace it by conductor IDs. It is this array. But the question is, let me share the question. I can copy paste it and put it within comment actually. So it says output, the question is, where is it? Not this one. Okay. I think I will get the question. Let's see other things, and then I will get the question later, maybe after break time. Okay. So yesterday we saw our input had multiple input. Our example data has multiple inputs, and that is why it used map, because we said if it is an array, we map it element by element. But in many cases also we can have an object with just one record. So how do we do that with one object also? Let's quickly see. So I have created a single record examples. You can do the same. So let me show you what they look like. So single record CSV, this is just, as you can see, one row CSV, and single record JSON also, it is an object rather than an array. You can just create an object like this. And the Excel also the same thing. I have also XML also, just with one element. So this one. Now, if you test this, since it is an object, the transformation, just payload or something. Once you have the array, it is single value, so you don't need to use map operation in this case when you have a single object. So let's see how it generates the code and try to understand the code and understand the difference between the two. Why what is happening is happening. Okay, so I have this one. Which one is this? This one, I created a project, DataWeave. I have shared it in the GitHub repo, single record. So let me show you the examples for the single record project are here. Again, the data should be under examples. Once you upload the data, it gets added to the project under examples if it is data, and under schemas if it is schema. So I have all this single record data. This one is a duplicate. I will remove it. So let me open them and show you one by one. So open this in text editor. You see there is only one record. The JSON also, just open it and you see it is an object now. Whereas the one we have yesterday, let me go there and show you this one. On the other hand, if I just open it, it is an array, as you can see here. There are different objects. So we were iterating over these elements. So in here, let's first start JSON. I have JSON to XML, CSV, and Excel, followed by XML to the rest, followed by CSV to the rest, and XLSX to the rest. Let's see a couple of them, since it will be just the same thing. So if I just click here, as you can see here, let me remove this and we can do it together. Clear. This one also clear. So you just click here. We have the input and output sections. So just for the input, click define. You come here. Let's add, for example, I have added all of them, but let's add the bookstore JSON single. I will remove it and we can do it together like what we did yesterday. So remove it. Just click add to add it. Then the ID will be bookstore JSON single, and then the type is, I select from the drop downs is JSON. We will see providing schema also, but first we are looking at how to do it with an example. So I select example here, and I go here and select the example record I have, which is in here, sample data, bookstore single. It is JSON data type. So all of them you do like that, and then just select. So this is JSON to XML. So in my input, as you can see, the payload now, it says object. Whereas if you see yesterday's, the payload for JSON, for this one, the payload here, it says array. So you can see the difference. This one is an array. That's why it picked map operation by default. Whereas this one, it is an object, and the output will also be an object since it is the single record. So we don't need to use map operation. We just access them using dot sign. It is single record. So here also, I select define metadata, and I'm going to go ahead and select the single record XML data example. So if I do like this, then this one's just drag and drop. This category should go, there is no category added. So just click on category and then bring it to this category. So it gets, oh, okay. I think I did it 2 times. If you click it multiple times, if it is string, it concatenates it. In this code, you see concatenation. If it is a number, you see addition. So this one, I don't need it. It has been already mapped. So what is not mapped here? We have year, price, year, author, language, title. So everything is mapped, I guess. So yeah, the difference between this and the one with an array is we don't have map, and we don't need now to add the we don't need to add this part, like adding these brackets to brackets. When it is an array, we add a root node followed by these 2 brackets. When it is a single object, on the other hand, we don't do that. We just have like this. We access it using dot sign, and for the attributes, this @ sign, and we don't need to use map operation. Okay, so that is it. I have, this is part of the assignment. I just wanted to cover that. But for that, I have done for all data transformations, and you can get this project from the GitHub project and practice with that and understand the differences. The other things we are going to cover today are, so we will go over the documentation and look at a couple of things. One is below map. Let me increase the zoom level here to 150. And also probably this one, I think the brightness, let me adjust it. Okay. Below map, we have map object. So this is map operation over an object. So let's see the documentation. So it says iterators here, as you can see, it iterates over an object using a mapper that acts on key values or indices of that object. So map object, the input is an object, and the output is also an object for map object. And we can specify keys, values, or indices. We will see some examples in the documentation. The documentation is really good, so we can just discuss the documentation. And they have examples here. You can use the $sign also, like what we used with map operation. You can use up to, so single dollar, double dollar, and triple dollar signs. And they have examples here. So we have this object here that you see, key value pair is A, its value is B, and C, its value is D. Since I can increase this, I have room. Okay, I get it. Okay, this doesn't work. Okay, so let's see this one. So this is an object. We have an object here of key value pairs, and there is map object. Then with map, we are using value and index, but now we have key also. Then what's in this example, what it is doing is the index is becoming the key, and the value and the key are becoming values, as you can see. Then the result here is a key for the new output, the new key, and the value will be this part. It will include the original value, which is B and C are the original values, and the original keys, which are A and C also. So we see that here. So you see, the first key is 0, which is a index in this case, and we have 1 also, another index. Then their values for the first one, it includes basically A and B, this A and B together. You will see them here together. Their order also matters because we have reversed the order also. It is rather than key value, now it is value key. So you see B coming before A here. The same thing here also, D should come before C, and that is what we see here. So this is map object. When you have an object and when you want to do some transformations on top of it, you use map object. Another example, it says this example increases each price by 5 and formats the number to always include 2 decimals. This is also important. So rounding or specifying the number of digits. As you can see here, I guess it's this part is what I'm talking about. So it says this example increases each price by 5 and formats the number to always include 2 decimals. So if we come here, so we have prices, a payload that has prices in it. So payload.prices, it is a single object. It should be a single object. That object, that the payload is an object. So payload.prices, then there is map object followed by value and key. We don't need, in this case, we are not using the index. Then here we have just the key, the original key as key, but the value, now value plus 5, and we want to format it. To format it, we use as number, then we specify within curly braces, format colon, then 2 digits. Like this is to specify that it should be 2 digits. So the original payload, if our original payload is this one, as you can see here, we have this original payload, then now our output is original payload plus 5. So this is another example. And let's see if they have another example. I think that's it. You can go over the documentation and practice more with other examples also. And also the DataWeave playground itself also has tutorials. Probably we covered some of them before. The remaining, maybe we may cover them next time, but you can go over it before the class so that when we are covering them in the class, you understand it well and ask if you have questions. So map object is here. This is map object, and we will see also filter object. So let me unmute you and see if anyone has any questions. Yeah, actually, if anyone has any questions, you can raise your hands and I will see that. Does anyone have any questions on the difference between map and map object? Map here, map is here. So always the input is an array, as you can see within brackets. Sorry, this one, as you can see, it is an array here. Whereas for map object, it is just an object. So we have an object here, as you can see. So that's the difference. And also Here for map object, we can do operations on the value, key, and also index. Whereas with map, just we have value and index only. And we can use here single $sign for value, double $sign for keys. And here in map object, we can use single $sign here, double $sign here, and triple $sign for index also, the same thing. You can, rather than saying index, you can simply put triple $sign here. And the functionality is the same. So that is the main difference between map and map object. So the other one, if you don't have any questions, the other one that I want to talk about today is also the difference between filter and filter object. So last time we saw how to use filter with real world data from NASA weblog data, how to process, for example, records that have failed or records with specific HTTP errors and so on. And now let's see the difference between filter and filter object. So filter is here. Filter is this one. As you can see, it says it iterates over an array, applies an expression that returns matching value. So this is array to array, whereas map filter object is here. It just filters an object. This is counterpart of the map object for map. So we have examples here. Let's see the examples. In here, for example, this is an object we know. The key A has a value apple, B has banana, and we have filter object. Then we just want to include only for records where the value is apple. So for equality sign, we use double equal sign here, as you can see. So once we do this, so this is the value for A, for the key A, its value is apple. So this is true, so this will be included. Whereas this one for B, the value is banana, so it will not be included. And that is what you see here. So this is filter object. Really, the examples are self-descriptive. This one we saw last time, actually a couple of times, starts with, this is an interesting example. Let me see if I can, yeah, I minimize the font. So here we have this object that you see. Key letter 1 has a value of A, letter 2 a value of B, and key ID has a value of 1. Now we want to include only the key value pairs where the key starts with letter. That's what you see here. So there is filter object here, then value key. I want only the key value pairs where key starts with letter. You can use starts with, ends with, containers, and so on. The ones we used last time to filter string. So you can see this one and this one have been included in the output, and this one gets excluded because its key doesn't start with letter, it is ID. This is also a nice example. They have a third example here, this one. So with map object and with filter object, we can include all of this. We can do operations on top of using the value, the key, or the index. So in this example, they are using index. So we have this object, A, the value of 1 is A, the value of 2 is B, the value of the key 3 is C. Now we want to include only where the index is greater than, the index is less than 1. So the index is less than 1 means just the first record in this case, because index will start from 0. But like it is usually common to exclude the first few records or to get the last few records and so on. These are lots of applications. So that this way, using the index, you can exclude the records you don't want. So in this case, since the index for this one is 0, and for this one is 1, and for this one is 2. So index less than 1 means just 1, and that is what? That's what we have here. And another example is here. So here we have a variable. The variable name is my object, and it is an object. The keys are string, str1, str2, str3, str4 as the keys, and the values are string 1, string 2. This is null, which means not a value, and this is string 4. So this doesn't have a value. That means the third one, this one doesn't have a value. And it is common to remove keys that don't have values. You may want to remove the missing values, or you may want to get the count of missing values over time, how many records are not returning values, and so on. So to do that, you see here, so we have my object, filter object. So we say this single dollar corresponds to the value, because order is like this. So this single dollar is value, double dollar is key, and triple dollar is index. So that's why they use single dollar here. So single dollar not equal to null. So give me the key value pairs where the value is not null, is what this is saying. And it will give string 1, string 2, and string 4 with their values. And we have that here. We have that here. So that is what's the difference between key and index? That's a good question. Okay. So like this object, key is in an object, it exists there. We have the key value pairs. So these are keys. Keys, these are the keys. And their values are here. Whereas an index, it starts from 0. So this has an index of 0, this has an index of 1, this has an index of 2, this has an index of 3, and so on. It is just like raw number, but it starts from 0. Keys are just here. They should be there, part of the data in the key value pairs when we have an object. That's a good question. So yeah, practice the difference, understand the difference between filter object and filter. This is for array, we said, and this is for object, we said. And we can operate with filter, we can operate over the values or index, whereas with filter object, we can operate over the values, keys, or index. And the other thing is also understand the difference between map, understand between map, the difference between map and map object. So we have covered this. There are a couple of functions before going to other importing libraries and looking at other functionalities. Let's cover a couple of other functions. Okay. So what else do we have that are common? One is flatten. So there is this one, flatten. So what does it do? It says here in the documentation, it turns a set of sub-arrays, such as this one, into a single flattened array, such as this one. So what it is doing is, let me copy this here and go to DataWeave, and here we just can write flatten of this one, and this one rather than on the tutorial, I will be on the playground. So see the difference. This one was one element, but itself is an array. This one is another element. So if we just check size of this one, size of it gives us 4. So this is counted as 1. And this is 2, second one. Even if it has another array inside it, this is just 1. This second array by itself, it is an array and it has 3 elements. And we have also an empty array here. And we have this one also that contains null. So flatten, it says, it just removes these arrays from within the array. It flattens it and makes it one. It flattens it one level. So in here, it says, turns a subset of arrays such as this into a single flattened array. But the other important thing, a couple of important things here is note that it flattens only the first level of the subarrays. So it flattens only the first level and omits any empty subarrays. So what it does here is this one has been, when I do flatten here, you see here, this one, since it is empty, it just gets excluded. And since it flattens it one level, 6 is here. We have an array inside the array itself. We have an array here because it just flattens it one level. But if I just make this 6 like this, now we have one level of array. But we can have nested arrays, arrays within arrays, and flatten just flattens only one level. You have to remember that. It just flattens one level. We can see examples. So this one, if you just copy it and see what it gives without flatten, it will be, each array will be a single element. So if I copy this here, now, okay, move this. Array of arrays, as you can see, it has 3 elements. Each array input, array 1, array 2, array 3 are single elements within the final array. So we have one array here, one element here. It is an array by itself, another array here, another array here. But usually you want it to be flattened, to be all of this to be on the same level, rather than having array of arrays. So simply, in that case, if I put flatten, as you can see now, the brackets are gone and we just have one level. So that is flatten. There is another example also here. Let's see. Yeah, this one is here. The other example is there is here this data. So the user key. Here we have a user key and its value is this array. Its value has an array, and within that array, what we see within that array here is actually it is somewhat more nested. So we have one object here and another object here. And each object also contains an array. My array by itself is an array, and it contains key value pairs. So this array, you see, it contains objects. So there is one key value pair here, and another key value pair below it. So let's say, for example, we may want to flatten, in the example, we may want to flatten my array. So let me copy this. Remove. Well, I can just hide it like this. So if we just copy this and we go to DataWeave, paste it here. Then just typing my data is just the whole of it dot user, you see, Now the key for the whole data is user. So dot user will give us all of this. Now it is once we do dot. Okay, let me see. Okay. Dot user. Then if I do dot my array, it gives me all these records. So there is an array here, and it contains one array here from this part, and another array here from this part. So if we just use flatten here, these brackets will be gone. These brackets. So the key value pairs, we'll have key value pairs in the same level. So if I do flatten, so as you can see, now we have both of them combined together. So it is an important function for making your data, to structure your data in the way you want it to be. So that is flatten, and let me see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is an empty array. That's right. And this is an array with null value, and this is an empty array. That's right. Yeah. Okay, cool. And I have one question. I want you to practice that question. So let me find out where it was. I think I didn't prepare the whole of it. Just give me some 2 minutes, then I will find it and share it with you. Then you will practice it, because these questions help you to gauge yourself, and they can encourage you to spend more time on it if you are not able to answer the questions right now. Okay, so let's do this question. So we have an array that contains these two values, 592 and 921, and the output should be XML, and it should be in this format. So I will send you this. I will attach it in the chat. It is XML2 is the image. You can download it. Now, just open DataWeave Playground. Okay. Where is it? It is this one. So var conductor IDs. I'll just create that variable var conductor IDs 592 and 921. I think 592, 921. Now this variable, we want the output. This is an array, as you can see, but we want the output to be something like this. So the root node will be trains. Then we have train element, and each train has an engineer ID. The first one is 592. Maybe the engineer that makes sure its quality is fine. So there is the second one also, its engineer ID is 921. So the conductor IDs are, these are engineers who conduct the quality of these trains. So how do you do that? Can you spend some 5 minutes and do like what before? It is very similar. Actually, this is an easier than what we did before. Before we had to first generate the array, but now we have already the array is ready. Before we used the dot asterisk to get all the elements as an array. But now we have this array. So can you take some 5 minutes and see if you can generate this in the DataWeave playground using map, basically. So you have this, then map, let's say JSON, for example. If it is for JSON, we have, let's say, value index, then just this is an array of empty dictionary. Here I can do index value. So the first one is 592, the second one is 921. But what we need is in JSON in the XML format with the engineer for each train element with the engineer ID like this. So spend some 5 minutes and see if you can solve it. So your root node should be trainers. So in the playground here, I'll change this to XML. Right now it is error. So here I will add trainers as a root node. And then after that, you have train element. And then within the train, we have engineer ID. So in here, once you get in here, you have to add train. Then you have another key of engineer ID. Value. So this is a starting point. Just complete this one, something like this. I need to add like that closing bracket at the end. For this one, the end is here. And then here I need this one. So as you can see, we have this output at the end. So it should look like this. We can add here curly bracket like this, but that's optional. You can do everything. You can put it in curly bracket like this as well. But this bracket and this bracket are optional. What are required are these ones. The rest is the same as with JSON, but in XML with the root node, you have to add this. So what are we doing? We have the array conductor IDs followed by map value index. The first time the value is this one, the index is 0. The second time the value is this one, the index is 1. We are not using the index anyway. Now, rather, what we are doing is we are creating a train element. So we put train as a key, and its value will be an object of key value pairs. And the key is engineer ID, and the value is simply this value, and it generates this XML data for us. So practice that. Let me share this screen also. Practice that when you get time. These are questions that you will encounter in certifications and interviews. So it is good if you spend some time on it, you will understand it easily. XML2 solution. Come to chat and share it. So before we end today's class, there is another thing that I want to talk about for so that when you get it elsewhere, you don't get overwhelmed, or I mean, because you may encounter questions, interviews, or for the sake of completeness also, I'm covering this one. So rather than here, we are providing example data, but rather than providing example data, you can also provide schema. Schema means like in database, the columns and the data type of each column, and all these kinds of information is schema. So JSON and XML also you can generate schema. So I have generated the schema. Let me show you the websites that I use it. There are different websites for generating schemas. I have shared the websites here in the Telegram group. So the first one, this one generates, where is it? This one, it generates schema for JSON. So rather than actual data, there could be cases where you don't want to use actual data, but just in that case, you can use a schema. So you bring this one, it generates schema for you. So what I did is I brought an object. Let me see, bookstore. I have this object. I bring it here, copy, and paste it here. And then if I just click generate schema, it generates the schema. See what the schema looks like. Oh, first I have select this one. I'm not a robot. Generate schema. So I can use this rather than example data. I can use the schema. So this schema, if you see, if it is intuitive, the data type is object. Let me increase the zoom, probably that one more visible. So this is a schema. It says it expects an object, and the fields are category, it is string, title, it is string, language, it is string, author, it is string, year, it is integer, price, since it can be decimal, simply puts it at the number, and it says these columns are required. So you just download this, save it as JSON, and that is we generated schema for JSON file. Let's do the same for XML. So I have this single XML file, I copy it, and then you go to the website, share there, or you can search online, generate XML schema from XML data. So there could be different websites. I have this one, this everywhere. The brightness, okay, it is dim. Okay, so I can bring it here and paste it. Then this is .xsd extension. So click generate xsd, and it has generated this schema here. You don't care about what it is doing, but it is the same as the JSON. It is defines the data type of each element, and the data type of the text, the elements and the data type. So now just download it and or copy it from here. You can download it or copy it and save it as XSD. And to save it as XSD, the extension, if you don't have it in your text editor, what you can do is come here. For example, I have Notepad++, paste it here. Then here, save file, save as. Just don't spend time looking here. I don't have it here, I think. So what I can simply do is XML schema .xsd. You put the file name with the extension within quotes. Then that will be the extension of the file XSD. You can force the extension to specific type by doing like this. So if I click save now it is as XSD, and it goes there. I can show you the extension. It was sample schema XSD. This is a data type here. Under the type column, there is XSD here. So in here, for example, I'm transforming JSON to XML using schema. The rest of the transformation here is the same. The only difference is now we don't have actual data, so we cannot preview it. We will not see sample data. but the code will be the same. So in here, what I do is, let's remove this and do it together. Clear metadata, this one also clear metadata. Then define here, then let's create the schema, JSON schema together. So I will remove this, delete, just click add, the ID will be bookstore JSON schema. And then here, the type, it is JSON, obviously. Here, before we were providing example, now we choose schema. Then you need to specify the path to the schema, which is, in my case, and this one, JSON schema. Then select. Now it detects the fields. The other thing is, as the example is the data example is get added to the under the source main resources under examples, the schemas they get added under schemas. I said, okay. I am in the wrong project. My project is this one. Yeah, here. This one is a single file. So I have this schema here. I added it twice. That's why you have -1 here. So the same thing. You add the XML schema also. Once you add it, just the rest is like what we did before, XML schema, rather than XML single or XML example object. Now I just select the schema. The mapping is the same like before, as you can see, drag and drop, and it generates the corresponding code. The code is the same, like when you use with example. The difference is now if you just go here and you want to preview, there is no any data to preview. But before, like with the Rails, the other is like XML to this one, it was JSON to XML. Here, since it was with examples, let me make it full screen and we can click preview, and yeah, it displays the data here because we have actual data. When we don't have actual data, when we have schema, it generates the code for us. It understands the column types and everything since we specified. The DataWeave code generated is the same. The only thing we cannot preview it. So these are, I think, enough for today. Practice more. Like data coding becomes easier if you practice, and they are common in the interview questions. Expect at least some 5 questions related to DataWeave generally, and in interview also are common. And once you master it, you become confident also. Helps for you to boost your confidence as well. So it is good if you invest enough time on it. If you have any questions, let me answer them, or else this will be enough for today.